This week has been a coordinated assault on anybody trying to maintain a sensible budget whilst buying retro handhelds. 3 separate manufacturers have either launched crowdfunding campaigns or opened their order books, all within days of each other. It's as if they've all decided to launch at once after a very confusing game of rock, paper, scissors. The AYANEO Pocket AIR Mini appeared on Indiegogo, with deliveries starting sometime before the end of the world? I don't know. The MagicX One 35 began taking pre-orders with delivery scheduled for next month, and the Mangmi Air X started accepting orders through their own storefront, with shipping due to start around next week, I think. There is some confusion about that. Joey from Joey's Retro Handhelds had an email saying that they were shipping right away. Mangmi on their Discord server said that they would ship next week, so I don't know which is true. My unit, which I got in pretty quickly, my unit hasn't shipped yet. And then there's the Miyoo Mini Flip, which launches today, the same day as I'm releasing this video, a decision that I'm choosing not to take personally. I need to address this directly, actually. I haven't purchased one, not because it isn't interesting, it absolutely is, but after spending what amounts to the cost of a very budget used car on devices purely for review purposes this week alone, I had to establish some boundaries. Now, I'm not kidding here. In the past week, I have spent over $800 just on these handheld devices. So the Flip won't feature on this channel, and that is simply down to financial pressure rather than any judgment on the device itself. Also, today is my birthday. I'm not celebrating at all because of all of the time and energy that I've actually had to put into this YouTube channel over the last few weeks. Now, I'm not being unhealthy about this. Let's face it, there are plenty of things that I am being unhealthy about in other ways, but I'm not being unhealthy about this, and I'll be taking some time off next week when it's my mum's birthday as well, and we'll both be celebrating together. She's already looking forward to my lecture on aspect ratio, so that'll be fun. All of this is to say that if you would like to buy me a coffee or a Miyoo Mini Flip, they're about the same price, right? Well, that would be most appreciated. What makes these 3 launches particularly noteworthy isn't the timing, it's the sudden and alarming lack of space on my desk. But it's also about what they represent. A few weeks ago, I talked about the disruptors, devices that are challenging the established order by asking whether you actually need to spend significantly more to play the games that you care about. These 3 are the next wave of that disruption. They're not incremental updates with slightly different button layouts. They're devices with distinct design philosophies, each making deliberate choices about what matters most. And if you're sitting there right now trying to decide which one deserves your money before the launch discounts disappear, then, well, you're in the right place, because I have read the spec sheets, measured the D-pad, licked the cartridge slots, alphabetized the screws, polished the screen, weighed the buttons, tested the plastic, timed the boot chime, checked the voltage, counted the pixels, smelled the battery, interviewed the manual, and taught the USB port a short sea shanty. The doctor says my eyesight should return soon. Consider this your weekend buying guide. It might also serve as a document labelled Prosecution Exhibit 1 when your wife finds out just how much you've spent this week. The fundamental question that you need to answer before choosing between these 3 isn't really about processor speeds or RAM quantities. It's about what you actually intend to play, because each of these devices has made a specific choice about its screen, and that choice determines everything else about your experience. Screens matter more than almost anything else because they're the only part of the device that you can't blame on the software. Get the wrong aspect ratio for your preferred games and you'll spend your entire gaming session staring at black borders. Some people really don't like black borders, so you need to go into this with your eyes open. The Mangmi Air X features a 5.5-inch display with a 16:9 aspect ratio. That's widescreen. Excellent news if you're planning to play PSP titles, which were designed exactly for this format. Also excellent if you want to watch films or browse the web or play some native Android games perhaps. The downside, of course, is that classic games from systems like the SNES, Mega Drive or PlayStation 1 were designed for 4:3 displays. On this screen, they will sit in the middle, looking a bit lonely with black bars on either side. The AYANEO Pocket Air Mini takes the opposite approach with its 4.2-inch 4:3 display. This is the traditional format. Every classic console from the 80s and 90s expected this ratio. Your SNES games will fill the entire screen edge to edge and look authentic enough to make you instinctively reach for a wired controller. Your PlayStation 1 titles will look as they did on your childhood television. But this time, you can play past your bedtime. The compromise, of course, PSP games will have black bars above and below because you're fitting a widescreen game into a traditional frame. The MagicX 135 splits the difference with a 3.5-inch 3:2 display. This matches the Game Boy Advance perfectly, which means that GBA titles will look superb. For other systems, it's neither perfect nor terrible. This is actually the same ratio screen as the Anbernic 34XX SP, which is a device that I love specifically because of this ratio. After testing dozens of devices across every aspect ratio, this is the most versatile I've encountered. It's the ratio that disappoints the least across the widest range of systems. Yet you've got to put up with black bars on pretty much everything. But they're so much less obtrusive in this format that everything just seems to fit properly. But here's where the MagicX does something clever that the other two can't, and frankly, something that more devices at this price point should be considering, but aren't. Those dual D-pads aren't just for retro games. You can rotate the device 90 degrees and play it vertically, a move my chiropractor advises against when I was trying to move my television. This means that Nintendo DS games can be displayed in their original dual-screen format, one screen above the other, exactly as intended. It also means you can play Tate mode arcade shooters, the vertical scrolling games like Don Don Pachi or Ikigura, in their proper orientation without having to tilt your head like a confused spaniel. This isn't just a nice bonus. For DS enthusiasts and arcade shooter fans, this is the feature that should make every other device on this price range feel incomplete. So before you consider anything else, answer this. What will you actually play? If your library is primarily PSP and you want a media device, then the Mangmi makes sense. If you're focused on classic consoles from the pre-PSP era, the AYANEO is your answer. If your Game Boy Advance is your priority, or you want to play DS games the way they were meant to be played, or you're an arcade shooter enthusiast, the MagicX seems to fit that requirement, at least in terms of screen size. The screen determines a good chunk of your experience. Everything else is secondary. Now we can talk about performance, but I'll warn you, this matters less than you probably think. All three devices use processors that are broadly similar in capability. They'll all handle everything up to PlayStation 1 without difficulty. They'll all manage most PSP games competently, even with some upscaling in certain circumstances. We'll be able to play Nintendo DS games on them, and a smattering of the 3DS libraries on the Mangmi Air X. But a quick warning here. The MediaTek chips in the other devices have historically had very poor driver support for 3DS. This isn't just these specific devices, this is actually a known issue across the entire budget handheld market with the specific chipset. Now, I've not been able to test any of these. I know one is sort of in the post at the moment, so I couldn't recommend buying any of these for 3DS alone. Where they differ is in how they handle the more demanding systems like PlayStation 2 and GameCube, and even then the differences are modest. The AYANEO uses MediaTek's Helio G90T, which is the most powerful option here if you're planning to experiment with PS2 or GameCube emulation. Well, this gives you your best chance of success, though you'll still need to be selective about which titles you attempt. The MagicX uses the MediaTek Helio G85, slightly less power, but still very capable. It'll handle the same range of systems, just with slightly less headroom for the demanding titles. The Mangmi uses the Qualcomm Snapdragon 662, which benchmarks lower than the other two, but has exceptionally mature drivers that make it particularly efficient for PSP emulation specifically. It's those drivers that should give you the added 3DS emulation, albeit at native resolution. But what these devices seem to be able to do out of the box is pretty impressive. Here's the reality. Unless you are planning to spend substantial time pushing these devices to their limits, the performance differences won't affect your experience. They will all play your SNES games perfectly. They'll all handle Dreamcast without complaint, a console which is now old enough to have its own midlife crisis. The performance question only becomes relevant if you're specifically interested in those more demanding systems. And even then, you're looking at playing selected titles rather than entire libraries. And if PS2 and GameCube performance is your primary concern, if that's the main reason that you are buying a handheld today, then you're shopping at the wrong price bracket entirely. You need to be looking at devices with significantly more powerful chipsets, and that means spending significantly more money. Physical design is where personal preference becomes important. The AYANEO weighs 269 grams and features symmetrical analog sticks, a design choice that has probably started an internet argument or two. And Hall effect triggers as well. It's the largest of the three and it feels substantial, but not so heavy that you'd consider it a piece of exercise equipment. The Mangmi weighs in at 286 grams with a symmetrical stick layout so pleasingly balanced it could probably pass a sobriety test. The MagicX weighs just 189 grams and it's noticeably more compact. It has a single analog stick paired with two D-pads, which is a deliberate design choice rather than a cost-cutting measure. Those dual D-pads enable vertical play for DS games and Tate arcade shooters, which is something neither of the other devices can do. The strategic sacrifice here is that you lose dual stick control for games in the N64, Dreamcast or PSP libraries. It's a specialist device that excels at specific things rather than being a jack of all trades that does everything adequately but nothing exceptionally. That's the design philosophy. Do you want one device that handles everything okay, or one device that handles your specific passion perfectly? All three of these use Hall effect sticks, meaning the only drift you're likely to develop will be in need for speed. This is a significant improvement. It means that your character will now only walk into walls when you're genuinely lost. I'm expecting all of these to feel solidly constructed, mostly because of the companies that are delivering them. The budget market has improved dramatically in build quality. Now, we do need to discuss the actual purchasing process, because the advertised price is not what you're actually going to pay, and the experience differs significantly between these three devices. The AYANEO is a crowdfunding campaign on Indiegogo. You're backing a project rather than purchasing a finished retail product. The early pricing starts at $69.99 for the base model and $79.99 for the upgraded version. However, shipping is added separately. Now, I'm sure that I've read a comment from AYANEO in the past saying that shipping will be around $20. But whilst I am sure, I can't find it anywhere, and that could easily be human error. Having gone through the process, what will happen is Indiegogo will check your card but not take out any money to begin with. They're currently not showing you the shipping fee, and you're told that this will be determined at a later date. And since this campaign lasts 30 days, I expect that that is when we'll start to see the full actual price that you'll pay. So your actual cost will be closer to $100, potentially more once you factor in any import duties that your country may apply. You're also accepting crowdfunding timelines, which often operate in a different dimension to normal human time. AYANEO has a solid track record, but it's not always solidly good. This is still a crowdfunding campaign rather than a guaranteed retail purchase. The Mangmi is a straightforward retail purchase from their website. The early price is $79.99, which includes a case. Shipping appears to be more reasonable. I paid $15 to ship to the UK, and I've seen some reports as high as $25, but nothing over that. Your total cost should be around $95. It's a standard e-commerce experience without any crowdfunding uncertainty. The MagicX is a pre-order again on their website with a November the 10th shipping date. Early prices start at $55 for the base model, $65 for the upgraded version. Shipping varies, but it appears to be in the $20 range. I paid $20. Your total cost should be around $80. Is that right? 65, 75, 80, $85 maybe, unless you pick up one of the cards as well. And that makes this the cheapest option by a considerable margin. But you're paying now for delivery in a month or maybe a bit later. One important note about microSD cards, both the Mangmi and MagicX offers bundles with memory cards. Don't buy them. That's my advice anyway. The Mangmi's cards arrive blank, which defeats the purpose of paying extra. MagicX, I believe, comes loaded with some stuff, but the quality and contents are unverified at the moment. I do believe it's a SanDisk card. I would still recommend purchasing a reputable brand card locally. A 256 gig SanDisk or Samsung card costs $25, something like that. A 512 would cost around $35. You'll get better performance and reliability than whatever bundle card they're offering, and you won't have to deal with any import taxes if suddenly that's added on. Having gone through each of these processes, I would say the MagicX was actually the easiest experience, with Mangmi following a very close second. The fact that AYANEO is tied to Indiegogo and has this confusing terminology of pledge instead of pre-order is a bit of friction that could put people off. That no money is actually sent to AYANEO at this time annoyed me, because I've put money aside for this and I wanted to know that it had gone so I wouldn't worry about spending it by accident. That you also don't get charged for shipping up front is another annoyance. And I'm not entirely happy with the process like this, which is far less than transparent. But this is a company that has done this thing before, so they kind of do know what they're doing. Look, all of this is really a personal complaint, but it is a warning about what type of buyer this process suits. And if you're somebody who needs that clarity and certainty in your purchases, the AYANEO process will frustrate you. If you're comfortable with crowdfunding ambiguity and can tolerate not knowing when your final cost is going to come in, then it's manageable. But that aside, all of these should be reputable companies who we are expecting to deliver on what they promise. So if you're interested in these devices, which one should you buy? Buy the Mangmi if you're a media consumer who games on the side. It runs Android 14, it's got the largest screen, and it handles widescreen content excellently. If your handheld is also your portable entertainment device for films, YouTube, web browsing, with PSP gaming as a major component, this is your device. It's also the most straightforward purchase with no crowdfunding or pre-order waiting. Buy the AYANEO if you're a retro purist who wants premium controls. The 4.3 screen is perfect for traditional systems, and the Hall effect triggers are a premium feature. It's also the most powerful if you want to experiment with PS2 and GameCube, although do not rely on getting your favourite games to run. You'll pay more and deal with crowdfunding, but you're getting the most premium option in this comparison. One thing I should say about this, I've said that the AYANEO's got, the best sticks in the business, that kind of thing. All of these devices, Hall effect stuff. So this isn't a major thing that you've got to deal with. You're not going to get inferior sticks on any of these devices. On to the MagicX. Buy this if you're a specialist. If portability is your absolute priority, if you want to play DS games the way that they were meant to be played, or if you're an arcade shooter enthusiast who's been waiting for an affordable Tate mode device that can slip into your pocket and doesn't compromise on playing other systems either. In those circumstances, this is really the only option that makes sense. It's the lightest, the cheapest, and the only one of the three that can be played vertically for dual-screen DS games and vertical arcade shooters. The single analog stick means that you're sacrificing dual-stick 3D games, but you're gaining capabilities that the other two simply do not have. This is not a device trying to do everything, it's trying to do one specific thing perfectly. In fact, that's something that all of these have in common. There is no universal best choice here, which is a shame because it would make writing this conclusion a hell of a lot easier. There is only the right choice for your specific needs and budget. And that's what makes this Wave of Disruptors so interesting. They're not competing to be the best at everything. They're competing to be the best at something specific. And I think that that is going to make a healthier market for all of us. Of course, You could just ignore all of these three entirely and wait for what might be looming in the horizon, the Anbernic RG DS. Anbernic is promising a powerful dual-screen DS-like experience for under $100, and it's already released a video showing it playing both Nintendo DS and 3DS titles. The video shows Rune Factory 4 and Shovel Knight, which is a smart move because both of these are popular but generally considered to be on the easier side of emulation. Whilst we haven't got specific specifications yet, the expectation is that for a sub $100 price, Nintendo DS games should run flawlessly. However, 3DS performance might be limited to a curated selection of less demanding titles rather than the entire library. It's definitely one to watch, but it's a promise for the future rather than a product that you can pick up straight away. So which one are you considering? Have you spent far too much on handhelds recently? I know I have. Let me know in the comments. But that's it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful. And I hope, at least for some of you, that it's managed to cement the device of your dreams into your head. I hope you've enjoyed this anyway. Thank you ever so much for watching. Until next time, happy gaming.